such a difficult position to be in when you're out as a fisherman to catch fish, but your objective is to avoid fish.
Fishing makes what makes you happy is if you catch a good lot of fish. Is always rewarding. You get high from it. Years and years ago, before this quota system come in, we could just catch. The under 10 metre fleet could catch what they liked. A lot of the time, we have been chucking quite a bit of fish back, and it's like going to work for a week and then chucking half your wages away. And some people just think, what's the point in that? The money is there if you catch a fish. It's a good living. It's a hard living. I think you are born to do it. It's not one of them sort of jobs that anyone can do. It's in you to do it.
The Hastings fishing fleet's goes back many generations. In fact, the fishing was here before it was established as a town. We can trace our heritage, our lineage back to the 1000s, and some of the families are quite newcomers, and they've been fishing in the 1600s and so on. So they're classified as the new boys.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough that it's been handed down to me from generation to generation. I say my father was a fisherman, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather, and as far as I know, my great-great-great-grandfather. But yeah, we've been in the fishing industry for generations.
My father wouldn't let me fish when I first left school. He said that I needed to get a proper job. My brother could fish, but I couldn't, so I didn't start till 1970s.
Oh, it's a brave decision, yeah, for kids to, for youngsters to get into fishing. It's because, again, where you're self-employed, the money's not there. I mean, sometimes you can go out and you can actually catch nothing, so that day you'll still do the same work, but you'll get no rewards, no money for it, so that's tough in itself. Most mornings are relatively the same, apart from hours change in the tides. Where we go, we're tidled at Hastings, so sometimes we have to be off earlier and sometimes later. Our nets are also been anchored there the day before, so we go there to pick them up and take the fish out and reset the nets if it's worth it. If it's not, we move to a different spot.
Navigation's changed tremendously. We initially had a watch and a compass, and where we used to find our gear in the fog, etc. And no radar, no GPS, no DGPS.
Before GPS, it was always there are certain marks on the land that you can see from the sea, and there are big aerials up, and if the aerial moves, sometimes it could be over the pier, sometimes it could be over the skyscraper, which is along a bit further, and you use these marks, I say, up and down the coast. I actually used to use these marks when I first started. It was just a time and a compass, and that's what we had. But now again, see, everything's changed with GPS.
My earliest memories of fishing are summer holidays before I became a full-time fisherman. Was going to sea with my father during the summer holidays, and with a small little open boat, clinker built. I can remember the smell, the fumes of the exhaust, which choked you to death half the time. But things have changed from that boat to the boat we're working now. We're still under 10 metre. We're still a small sustainable craft. We can knock about a little bit more weather than they used to.
Most of the boats didn't have wheel houses on them, so we was always out in the open, and it was cold, and if it was raining, it was very wet. But the newer boats now, we're protected from the sun, we're protected from the rain, the wind. I mean, now we have hydraulic net haulers that bring the nets in. We have flakers again that pull the nets over for you. But I've been fortunate that I've always had a net hauler to pull the nets in for me. Now and again, we pull them in by hand, and that is very hard.
It is physically demanding because until you go to sea and you understand, I mean, it's the movement on a boat and that tires you as much as anything, so you're constantly keeping balance, so your muscles and your body framework is actually adapting to the movement of the sea on a continual basis. And you taken with that, you've got physical work as well, and it's also Britain's most dangerous job.
We are used to the boat rocking about, but my mate, one of the other guys who takes a boat for me, he's always said it's like doing your work on a football, standing on a football. So I think that sums it up. When the weather is really bad, our fishing boats cannot go to sea because we cannot launch from the beach. So we think therefore that, the fish is not being targeted every single day by us, not like by some of the bigger boats that can actually, crack on through all the big rough weather. I mean, we have to have it relatively calm. You respect the sea when it's rough. Obviously, you have to respect the sea. There's only one winner, and that is the sea. You've got to say you've been scared, because if you're not human. When the weather turns bad, because our harbour isn't brilliant a harbour, Hastings, and we have to actually beach them. Sometimes all we're doing is we're aiming for a hook, and other boats in other ports, they go into a big 100-foot gap, so we're aiming for like a 20 mil wire. So it's a bit harder for us, but at the same time, it's just what you're born to. You're just born and bred into this. We do not know anything else.
Many funny and scary things that have happened. There's just, you could go on, you could speak all day. So this one night we pushed off, we just back at the harbour wall, very close in, and it was flat calm night, sturco, absolutely sturco, and all the herring nets suddenly went together, and can't work this out. So we thought herrings must have bunched them up. So we rowed over and started pulling the net, and we come up out the water on the back of something, and we thought, oh, that's just like Moby Dick. This is it's unbelievable. So anyway, we panicked a bit, rowed in, got a big boat, come off with a big boat to get the nets, and it was a monster shark. Well, we thought, well, I can't believe how big this is. There was 4 of us at one end of the tower, looking at the other end of the tower. I could get out the boat and stand on it. It was huge. It was absolutely huge. And we thought, well, what's this doing inside? We thought it must be a giant basking shark. So we let the tail end in and got the head in, and 4 of us, there was about 7 or 8 of us on the boat by hand, trying to pull the head up. And this head come up out the water, and it had the biggest mouthful of teeth and great red eyes. It was in them days, we thought it was a giant porbeagle, but we know porbeagles don't grow that big. So it had to be a white. And when you say, yes, we've caught a great white shark in Hastings Harbour, people wouldn't believe you, but there's 8 fishermen on that boat that are actually there. And they're still here today, and they never forget it.
We used to push the boats into the sea, like there'd be 4 or 5 fishermen with your backs against the boat and pushing them. But because nowadays we have bulldozers, they do all the work for you. So therefore, it's nice for us now because, you know, we're not sitting down trying to struggle to push a boat off. We know that the tractor can do that for us. And because of the tractors as well, it's actually helped us in one way as well, because we've got a bit bigger boats that can actually go to sea a bit in rougher weather, and we feel safer in these boats as well. A southwesterly wind is very good for fishing. This normally brings the fish in to us and stirs a lot of the fish up. A northerly wind is terrible. All that does is cut the fish off. You know, there's you could go, say, get 5 boxes one day on a southwesterly wind, and then if it comes northerly, you'll be lucky to get 1 box. When my father retired from fishing, normally the older the fishermen retire, and then they become, like we call them, a boy ashore, which is they actually push you afloat in the bulldozer. They get the wire ready for you to come home, and they heave you up and they help put the fish on the market. They get the diesel up for you, and it's an easier life to be on the shore. And some of the other older fishermen actually sit there and mend nets for us. You know, we give them a bit of money that way as well. So they sort of try to stay within the fishing community, being self-employed, and that's the same with all the older generation, really. If we don't go to sea, we get no money. I mean, hopefully you set yourself up a pension for later on in life, but I'll be working till I retire or till I die. Most of the fish, as long as it is sizable, there is a market for it. If the fish is too small, it has to go back no matter what, you know, because otherwise we could get fined big time for landing undersized fish. Sometimes there are bans on, and we can be catching, like, we don't want to catch certain fish that are on a ban, but that happens sometimes. So if there is a ban on and we catch a certain fish that is banned, we have to chuck back no matter what, dead or alive again. So we have, say, like 8 or 10 fleets of nets down. We have to do them every day because the fish has to be taken out regardless whether there's little or a lot of fish.
If you could visualise a tennis net, the static nets are laid in the tide, east to west more or less, or southwest, northeast, in the run of the tide. There's 8 nets to a fleet, and as normality, and they're about 60 metres per net. You regulate the mesh size according to what you're fishing for. If you're fishing for soles, plaice, cod, or bigger still turbot, or whatever, you regulate your mesh size so you don't have discards. Problem being the situation we've got, that, you know, cod is almost unfishable because their quotas have been half a fish a day, so how can you regulate for that? Well, my two sons, they're not in fishing. They need to earn a living, but they cannot make a living in fishing, so why would they come into fishing? So effectively you look at fishing as a family through 1,000 years of ups and downs, and yet the only thing that's destroyed us is our entry into the European Union and becoming a common resource. It was shared out between member states. We got next to nothing back, considering we put nearly everything in. I think the figures are 82% of Europe's pool of fish was former British, and we got back 8% in monetary value. So we gave everything and got nothing back, and that led to the decimation of the coastal communities that survived around the British Isles. We're under 10 metre boats, and one of the points to look at on entering Europe, that all under 10 metre boats were exempt under European law. Then they changed the rule in 2006, but didn't give us any quota to facilitate us bringing into a system that wasn't built for us. So we had a fisheries system that excluded the under 10 metre fleet, in a few weeks we was in a position where we had no fish to fish on because we haven't been allocated any. And the methodology was, because we were exempt, that all the fish quota that is available for the British was automatically given to the large boat sector, irrespective of whether they had a track record or not. That created massive problems, obviously, and we haven't really recovered from that up till now. Fisheries weren't in danger until we entered the European Union. Then it became a common asset, and where we can only control 8% of it, and we have then foreign vessels fishing in our own territorial waters, which were, how can you control a fishery at all? So we've seen the stocks plummet, and we are sustainable fisheries because we have MSC certification. Now the certification process is very, very difficult to obtain. There was a seminar on fishing practices through the UK, through the Sea Fish Industry Authority, where they singled out Hastings as near perfect a fishery as could be devised. But one thing is very sure, we are not the people who have damaged the fish stocks. We've all been here 1,000 years and fished sustainably for 1,000 years. We had 44 boats and a waiting list to join, and you could make a very good living from the sea. That's all changed. Now you've got a job bringing people in the industry. You cannot earn enough money to facilitate an income. I asked the Minister why we was left out of the minimum wage structure, because if I caught every fish last month on my quota, the maximum I could earn was £144. If I caught every fish I was allowed. How do you bring youngsters into the industry and saying this is a good job if you can earn more money stacking shelves at Tesco's one night?
I think there's always going to be fishermen down at Hastings. I mean, hopefully if my sons carry on, I mean, they'll do it, and if they have children, perhaps they'll do it. It is a way of life. I do think there'll always be a good living in fishing. Hard living, but a good living.
We're still waiting, and quotas still being given to people who haven't got it, and the small under 10 metre fleet are still struggling to survive with lack of quota. Most people are the opinion that all fish stocks are low. Now they've come up now to maximum sustainable yield, many species, but it means we still can't catch them because we have no quota. Such a difficult position to be in when you're out as a fisherman to catch fish, but your objective is to avoid fish.
What makes you happy is if you catch a good lot of fish. Is always rewarding. You get high from it. Years and years ago, before this quota system come in, we could just catch. The under 10 metre fleet could catch what they liked. The money is there if you let you catch a fish. It's a good living. It's a hard living. I think you are born to do it. It's not one of them sort of jobs that anyone can do. It's in you to do it.